If you marketed your home correctly, you should be getting a bunch of buyers setting up appointments to come look at your property. And just like a fisherman with a nibble on the hook, you don't want that fish to get away or that potential buyer to get away. So how do we actually go ahead and reel that buyer in to put an offer on your property? And it really all boils down to keeping that buyer's dream alive. For a buyer, it's all about the feelings, the experience they have for the whole buying process. And it kind of reminds me of an example mentioned in Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink, which he references a study about malpractice lawsuits with doctors. And he says, believe it or not, the risk of being sued for malpractice has very little to do with how many mistakes a doctor makes. That there are highly skilled doctors who get sued a lot and doctors who make lots of mistakes and never get sued. What comes up again and again in malpractice cases is that patients say they were rushed or ignored or treated poorly. People just don't sue doctors they like. Specialists will say, we think it's your primary care doctor who was at fault. And the client will say, I don't care what she did. I love her and I'm not suing her. And that's exactly the same for you. Your house could be perfect, but if the buyer isn't having a feel-good experience when going to look at your home, they're not gonna make an offer.
If a potential buyer can see themselves fulfilling their dreams in your home, then they will likely put in an offer. So your primary goal is to keep the buyer's dreams alive. Let's talk about some of the things you can do to make their experience amazing. The first thing a buyer will experience is the ease of being able to see your property. So it's best to have as many windows of opportunity to be able to view the property than to limit the times that a buyer can see your property based on what's best for your schedule.
For example, I've had it where I've listed a property and tenants occupied that property. And when they did, it was very hard to get the buyer and the tenant to align on a schedule to make it work. And the last thing I want to do is have to tell that buyer for the third time, no, that time does not work. We as sellers have to actually put ourselves in the buyer's shoes, knowing that the best opportunity for the buyer to look at your home is possibly going to be on the night and weekends. And we really want to make it very convenient for that buyer to look at your home. So expect to actually show the home on the nights and the weekends. I've never been able to actually have a buyer feel comfortable walking or showing a home when the seller is actually in the home. What ends up happening is that dream that the buyer would build is just totally destroyed. They can't see past you actually living in the home and it being your home. They're concerned more about with the conversation that they're having with you and to not offend you about any comments that they may think negatively about your home. That's just why it's so important to not be there when the buyer is looking at the property.
As a buyer's agent, I have a relationship with a client and I can help them see your home in a positive light. With you being in the house with them, it can really make the buyers nervous and it can impact the sale of the property. We want to avoid negative feelings coming from the buyer. The best way to get inside your home is to use some sort of lock with a code. Okay. You want to make sure to give your buyers space so that way they can envision their life and their dream home. You don't want them focused on a conversation with you, but rather envisioning where to put the couch or how to have a party on the back deck. Now your next question might be, well, how am I going to show off all the amazing features of my property if I'm not there in person? This is what great marketing is all about.
Now, if a buyer is actually asking a whole bunch of questions, that's actually a really good thing because that means the buyer is very interested in wanting to ask detailed questions to be able to figure out whether this home will really work for them. Now, what you want is to try to appeal to all different types of people or buyers. Now, I'm not detailed, but my wife is, and she would really want a booklet with all the details in it. Now, you want to be able to answer all those questions very easily and fast. And so having that available for them is very important. Now, for me, I need it blaringly obvious right in my face. And so what I have to do is create labels around the home that will actually talk about those different features. We call these things the invisible made visible labels. And these you can stick around the home anywhere you want, where it will actually call out what is of value about your property. For example, like if you have a brand new roof, calling out that it's a newer roof so that then the buyer knows there's not gonna be some really big expense with the roof come 2 years from now. No one is actually doing this, and it's quite funny because it's the #1 thing that both buyers and buyer agents compliment my team on. They love the labels, that it shows them exactly what brings value to the property. Now, it's actually time to anchor that buyer to your home. Now, a buyer probably has already looked at several houses before or even after yours. And what actually happens, and it may seem crazy, but the buyer will start mixing up the houses, which features go to which house. One of the ways to prevent this from happening is actually having a flyer on the table for the buyer to take with them. All you gotta do is put like 1 or 2 pictures on the flyer, as well as the top features about your property, so it anchors that buyer to your home and they remember it. The last thing I wanna do is actually go over how you would want to leave the home for the buyer before they show up. Now, you may actually wanna put a checklist or create a checklist for yourself so that you can do these items before you leave. Here are some of the things on our list. Turn on all lights. Allow as much natural light in as possible. Close those toilet lids, pull back shower curtains, make sure all valuable and prescriptions are locked away. Make sure that you have anything on the countertops, throw it into a bin and put it underneath the kitchen counter. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions or you need help in selling your home, just go ahead and reach out to my team and we'll help you.